Hello, a very warm welcome to Middle East Matters. I'm Sanam Shantier. Coming up on this week's program, at least 10,000 civilians killed and millions displaced. We take a look back at the conflict in Yemen, which is entering its fourth year. Jordan is hit by deadly new flash floods, leading to the evacuation of thousands of tourists from the ancient city of Petra. Also coming up, we'll cross over to New York to Egyptian-American filmmaker Sam Abbas, who will talk to us about the challenges of screening an LGBTQ movie in the Middle East. We begin in Yemen and a deadly conflict that's now entering its fourth year. But with no sign of the fighting abating, some 10,000 have been killed, millions displaced, with the United Nations warning of a looming famine. And still, pro-government troops, supported by a Saudi-led coalition, are battling to retake the key port city of Hodeida. Brian Quinn takes a look back at the war that has led to the world's worst humanitarian crisis.
Yemen, a country in conflict for decades, now in the grip of a brutal civil war that's brought its population to the brink of famine. Created from the reunification of two separate states, one communist, one Islamist, in 1990, by 2011 the Republic of Yemen was ready for a change. Massive street protests during the Arab Spring forced President Ali Abdullah Saleh to step aside after 33 years in power. His vice president, Abed Rabo Mansour Hadi, took over, but failure to improve the economy and persistent al-Qaeda attacks left him weakened. A push for constitutional reforms angered the country's disenfranchised Zaidi Shiite population, and a northern Shiite militia known as the Houthis launched a full-scale uprising. By September 2014, the Houthis, allied with former President Saleh, had taken the capital city Sana'a, forcing Hadi into exile. Since then, troops loyal to Hadi's internationally recognized government, backed by a Saudi-led coalition of Arab states, have been fighting to oust the Houthis. The conflict has been marked by shifting loyalties on all sides. Saleh himself was killed by Houthis in 2017 after signaling a shift towards an alliance with Riyadh. The conflict is seen by some as a proxy war between regional arch-rivals Saudi Arabia and Iran. Yemen's Houthis are Shia Muslims and receive support from Iran's Shia government, though they are not the same sect. The Sunni Saudis view the establishment of a Shia state on their southern border as unacceptable. Since March 2015, Riyadh has led a bombing campaign supported by arms and logistics from the US, UK, and France to beat back the Houthis and reinstall Hadi. The fighting, especially the Saudi bombing campaign, has taken a heavy toll on the country's civilians. The UN estimates some 10,000 have been killed since 2015, but aid groups believe the real number may be more than 5 times higher. 2 million people have been internally displaced. A Saudi blockade of Yemen's ports aimed at cutting off Iranian aid to the Houthis has intensified the humanitarian crisis. The UN estimates over 22 million people are in need of humanitarian assistance, and 14 million are at risk of starvation. With the pro-government coalition's offensive to retake the western port of Hodeida, through which at least 80% of food aid to Yemen flows, NGOs are warning the country is on the brink of the worst famine in modern history.
Next, it's the worst escalation between Israel and Palestinian militants in Gaza since the 2014 conflict. As of Monday, Palestinian militants have been launching dozens of rockets towards Israel, while Israeli jets have been carrying out bombing raids. The cross-border attacks were triggered by a botched Israeli undercover raid into the blockaded territory. Now we turn our attention to Jordan, where flash floods have killed more than a dozen people while forcing the evacuation of some 3,500 tourists from the ancient city of Petra. Only 2 weeks earlier, 21 people, most of them children, were killed in flash floods near the Dead Sea.
Restoring the ancient city of Petra to its former, drier glory. Cleanup operations were underway in Jordan after torrential rains flooded the famed UNESCO World Heritage Site, forcing the evacuation of nearly 4,000 tourists. Those who witnessed the incident say they barely had time to get out of the way.
We're standing beside the canal, and we all of a sudden hear like a thunder noise. And from a cliff, a lot of water came down. It was just like you see it in the movies.
We saw a few people, Arabic people and Bedouins, screaming, shouting, and we thought, what's going on? And then 10 minutes later, they pushed us, or they said, go to the mountains, water is coming.
Hundreds of thousands of visitors flock to Petra each year to marvel at its massive granite-carved facades and tombs, making the antique city the crown jewel of Jordanian tourism. After floods cut off the nearby highways, the country's military was sent to assist with search and rescue operations. The nearby town of Wadi MUSA was also affected, and residents there were urged to evacuate as the water rose up to 4 meters high, an unprecedented sight in the desertic region where it hardly ever rains.
My restaurant got flooded. The water was very high. It came up to here. I had to swim to save myself. I had to push the fridges away. I hurt my hands in the process. As you can see, there's nothing left of my restaurant.
Despite the damage, Petra reopened its doors to the public on Sunday. In late October, flash floods killed 21 people in Jordan, most of them children, on a school trip near the Dead Sea. The incident had pushed both the country's education and tourism ministers to hand in their resignations.
Now, according to an international body, Iran remains in compliance with the nuclear deal, also known as the JCPOA. This is the 13th time the IAEA is issuing such report since 2015. This despite a US withdrawal from the multilateral accord and the reimposition of all US nuclear-related sanctions on the country, which had been lifted under the agreement. Now, earlier on Monday, in an exclusive interview with France 24, KHARRAZI told me Tehran will continue to remain in the JCPOA for now. He's a foreign policy advisor to Iran's highest power, that's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei.
So far, Iran has shown its patience and continue to be part of the deal. Therefore, Iran should not be questioned that why still stands and still is part of the deal. The other side has to be questioned that why they are hesitating.
You can catch the full interview on our website, that's france24.com. Now, while the majority of the world has legalized homosexuality, the countries where it is still outlawed are concentrated in the Middle East. So it goes without saying that the subject remains somewhat contentious, even when addressed in the art form. This week, we're joined by 25-year-old Egyptian-American filmmaker Sam Abbas to talk about his film, The Wedding. Sam, thank you so much for speaking to us all the way from New York. Now, over the years, there have been an array of Arab films about the LGBTQ community. What did you hope to achieve here?
Well, I made this film because it was something that's very personal to me, and you know, it meant a lot to me to get the story off my shoulders. And so far, we've been screening it, and it's been very receptive, and a lot of people are able to identify with it. So it's been very refreshing. I feel like I've already accomplished what I wanted. How, you know, to tell a story that's personal to me, and then to see that people are identifying with it is like a bonus.
So what kind of feedback has it had in the region, both positive and negative?
Well, it's mainly positive, and that's because the screenings in the Middle East are RSVP. They're invite only. We have a certain system where not everyone is invited. It's very strict. So the people that are invited are people that are actually looking forward to seeing it. So, so that I guess we'll start seeing the negative, the people that actually see it that have negative things to say once it's in the U.S., which is December 14th.
Now, you just alluded to this. Talk us through the steps that you had to take to ensure safety when screening the movie in the region.
Yeah, absolutely. So for instance, one thing is like I myself can't attend, and that's for the safety of myself and the safety of people that are there if I was to get followed, etc. There's absolutely no reporters allowed, and that's for a big aspect of that is because it could be unintentional if somebody's mentioning the theater or someone attending, and it puts a lot of people at risk. There's a system in which people can RSVP. If you can RSVP, you have to sign a non-disclosure agreement and you have to provide a copy of your ID, and that's to ensure everyone else that is going feels safe. There's no outsiders, so you can't bring a guest. No cell phones and cameras. You are patted down, and there are two people of our that work with us that are watching the entire screening to make sure nothing is being recorded during the screenings. There is no re-entry, so if you have a bad bladder, you're gonna have to wait there for the hour and 15 minutes.
Lastly, Sam, what was behind the decision to shoot the entire film in wide shot? Because some critics have said that that creates some kind of distance between the viewer and the actors. It's also a very slow-paced film.
Yes, I'm a huge fan of Asian cinema, and with this film, I wanted it to be very voyeuristic, and I think by having it on a 16mm lens, it feels like we're spying in. I also have a very intricate sound design where we record not just the actors, but a lot of the New York City bypassers. So then the way we layer it in sound design is I really wanted to allow the audience to either choose to follow the story of Rami and Sarah, or they could listen to the New Yorkers on the street. So I really wanted you to feel a disconnect and like you're really watching something personal.
Egyptian-American filmmaker Sam Abbas, thank you so much for speaking to us here on Middle East Matters. Now, a team of Egyptian archaeologists have unearthed a 4,500-year-old tomb near the capital, Cairo. Inside, they discovered dozens of mummies of cats and scarab beetles. Some of them date back more than 6,000 years. A bronze cat statue dedicated to an ancient Egyptian cat was also found inside the tomb. The latest evidence goes to show that ancient Egyptians are among history's most enthusiastic cat lovers. Well, that's it for us this week. Don't forget you can reach out to us on both Facebook and Twitter. That's Middle East Matters France 24. Thank you for watching.